Greetings, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be discussing some important transits coming up in the next few months, and this video is going to be a supplementary video to the astrological forecast that I do every quarter. So every solstice and equinox, I put together a list of important dates coming up that we can prepare for and look forward to. And the link to the description of that forecast for the solstice in December 2023 to the equinox in March 2024. You can find that link in the description of this video. And be sure to subscribe to get them in your email every quarter. And we're going to be doing a video about a few key transits in the next couple months, but the larger context of this video, I want to talk about when will the cyber attack happen? And it's a topic that we've all been hearing about it here and there, and it's been something that's been predicted over the past couple years, warned about by major institutions. There have been hacks and cyber threats, viruses that go through computers since computers were invented, essentially. But we were told in January 2023 by the World Economic Forum, an institution that is above governments and many of the most important intellectual figures in the world with the most power in their institutions, governments themselves, and companies. They attend this forum and they produce reports about how, as a world community, we should be trying to manage how the world is developing. And they have plenty of goals and agendas for themselves. That they have so many different ideas, and you can read their website about what they are planning, what their plans are. And one of the plans is managing the imminent threat of a cyber attack. And they're saying that a cyber attack will happen in the next 2 years, since January 2023 until January 2025. They are expecting a cyber attack. Why 2 years? I'm not sure. Why not 3? Why not 5? Maybe because of the advancing technologies. They have their own predictive ways of saying, yep, in 2 years there's going to be a cyber attack. And you can look up who could be doing this, who would have the capabilities of doing this. That's all up for debate. But what's interesting to me is, when will the astrological conditions be most ripe for something like this to happen on a massive scale? Because they're saying it's going to be similar to the coronavirus in that some kind of rogue program will enter into all the worldwide computer systems and then mutate and then destroy and disrupt or steal money, prevent people from accessing the internet. And so the solution to that is more tightened security for internet access. And it's quite interesting because this kind of attack has been predicted for a long, long time. And I just read a book, it's called A History of Strategy, From Sun Tzu to William S. Lind, by Martin van Creveld. And he talks in the last chapter of his book about how when people come to dominate territories, land, certain land masses, and then the oceans, very soon after that, war follows. And it's basically saying conflict then comes into play when there's new territory that has been mastered by people. So the territory of our day and age is this cyber territory, the world of computers. And people spend more and more time on the internet and time on their computers, that this becomes a territory in and of itself, and very soon conflicts will then inevitably take place over the control over that territory. And so astrologically, what would we be looking for when it comes to a cyber attack? What planetary bodies would play into that? Well, first, if it's going to be a worldwide event, we would have to be dealing with the movement of the slowest planets. When they move into new signs, or when their positions are affected by other slow-moving planets, that produces bigger events, and that produces things that have a more long-lasting effect. So we want to see what the slowest moving planets are doing, and if their changes are conducive to certain conditions being, like I said, ripe to produce something like a cyber attack. And the other key planets are, more specifically, well, first attack Mars. We're talking about conflict, so Mars should be involved. We're talking about information technology. Information being Mercury, communication systems, also economic systems, that's also Mercury. Business is Mercury as well. All of these things are looking to be disrupted within an attack or a conflictual situation. So Mercury and Mars are two key planets that we want to see somehow involved in a astrological condition. The other key ones will be Rahu. And Rahu is the north node. And why would Rahu be involved? Rahu represents technology. It represents things that are brand new. It represents innovation and things that can be mysterious when they're first mysterious and unknown, but once they're introduced, they can make very large changes and they can radically change things very quickly. It's a very combustible and kind of wild energy. And as I said, it also rules over communication, it rules over technology in general and things that are made out of metal specifically. And so we want to see Rahu in the mix too, because like I said, it can produce an abrupt, fast, unexpected change. And that word unexpected is probably the most important part. And also unknown, things that it's hard to understand what's happening, but it's change nonetheless that we have to just start to deal with. Those are all Rahu attributes. And then another would be, Rahu is said to be smoky. And so that means misted and confusing situations. And that would certainly happen. It would be a very confusing situation if all of a sudden one day you wake up and there's no more internet or everything's shut down. That would be a totally misted situation. So Rahu would very much have to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. And the others would be, I would say, Uranus. Uranus is kind of a very combustible, rebellious, kind of renegade things that can happen, that can come out of nowhere. So a cyber attack being something that happens, it's not something where you march troops on a battlefield. That's not really a Uranus situation. That's a much more controlled kind of warfare. A sudden, immediate, fast, unexpected, new, different kind of attack would need a Uranus type of energy attached to it, or that's what Uranus would bring to a situation like that, very similar to Rahu. And Uranus also has a technological aspect because it represents ideas or new and brilliant kind of innovatory kind of mentalities. And so a virus that spreads worldwide really fast, that is a sign of genius. It's destructive in a genius kind of way. It's amazing. It can destroy and disrupt systems in such a unique new way. That's a Uranus kind of energy. And also we can look at Pluto a little bit. And Pluto is the destruction of things for new things to be reborn. So it's rebirthing. It's the rebirthing process essentially, and things being brought to the ground, totally destroyed, and then from the ashes, something new coming from that. That's a very Plutonian energy. Death, but then rebirth after death. So death of a certain system, death of a certain type of technological system, rebirth of a new system that is the way forward because the old system was no longer working or was destroyed. So all of those we're going to be touching on here, but let's jump into the charts really quick. For the next couple weeks, I want to talk about, to cover just the period of time for the astrological forecast portion of the video. In about a week's time, and if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see this is December 27th, 2023. This is going to be, so this is a full moon day. And pay attention, I've made the charts so that they're as easy to read as possible, but don't pay attention to this inner circle. Pay attention to the outer circle. The outer circle are the planets as they're transiting in the sky. This day is a full moon day, and the sun right here in Capricorn at 5 degrees. The moon was just a couple hours earlier exactly at 5 degrees, which makes it a full moon. So this day, it's the 27th, this is a full moon day. So a very expressive day. The moon is in Cancer. One of the reasons why the holiday season is such a heartfelt, or has the potential to be a heartfelt season, is because the full moon is always in Cancer during the December time when the sun is in Capricorn. And so it is a time for feeling one's emotions to the fullest extent, and then being able to express your emotions. And it could be healthy, it could be unhealthy, but it's a very emotionally expressive time. And it's a time to really feel in the inside of yourself what's happening in your emotional world. People can get very depressed at Christmas or at any part of the holiday season. And it's because their emotions are really coming to the fore. That full moon in Cancer is going to bring out what your environment is doing to you emotionally. And it's about really setting the right tone to be getting your needs met emotionally. And so the full moon in Cancer is a great time to do that every December time period after the solstice, so after the 20th or 21st of December. So the 27th, we have this day, and so that's that full moon in Cancer. And on this same exact day, just a little bit later in the day, after the moon moves over to 16 degrees here, we have an exact conjunction up here, you can see, between Mars and Mercury. And you can't see them because they're conjunct next to one another. They're both tightly here in Sagittarius. So Mercury is retrograde right now. It was in Capricorn, and it hits Mars, which is direct, and Mars is coming through Sagittarius, and they both make on that full moon day a conjunction right on top of one another. So this is saying that the retrograde Mercury is us paying closer attention to how we communicate, being more careful with what we say, reorganizing our lives. These are what Mercury retrograde tends to do in our lives. Disruptions in communications are common because it's showing us where we're not managing our communicative abilities very well, or managing our business affairs or money very well. It's a time to reorganize things. Hitting Mars, coming through those two conjunct, is going to say that be careful of what you say and be very clear about what you say so that they align with your actions. Mars is our actions. It's what we do as informed by what we think we should do. So this day, particularly being a full moon day, make sure that your words and your actions are in alignment. Make sure that what you say, you really mean that. And if you have ideals being a Sagittarian attribute because it's happening in Sagittarius, make sure that your ideals are matching your words and your deeds. And so it can be a great day for meeting with people. It can be a great celebratory day for the solstice, or meeting with family and friends. And within that context, you want to make sure, as I said, that your Mercury ability to manage your life and to make things work in your life, and what you actually do, your Mars part of your life, how you solve problems, or how you do things according to what you think you should do, make sure that's all aligned. So the main theme is actions and words aligning, and not being too brash with what you do and say, not being too overly, say, idealistic or overly intense. Sagittarius can be a very intense place for a fire planet like Mars to be in. Mars there can be a spiritual warrior kind of attribute, we got to do this because this is the best way forward, and because we got to reach for the top. If you're going to live like that in such an idealistic manner, make sure that you're managing your life well, using Mercury very well, and that you're not saying things but not really meaning them. And so that's the general highlight for this day coming up. And that day, in just a week's time on the 27th, is going to set up the next alignment that I want to talk about. And that day is January 27th, 2024. And this is going to be quite a powerful day because once again we have Mars and Mercury conjunct. So Mars kept going forward through Capricorn. Mercury turns direct. It's on the 2nd of January, I believe. I could be wrong, but the 1st or 2nd of January, Mercury turns back around and goes back into Capricorn. They meet up again in Capricorn, Mars and Mercury. Mars and Mercury. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It's a very, very strong Mars, healthy Mars. So when Mars is in Capricorn, it produces the warrior mentality that is able to really be as effective as possible when it comes to resolving conflicts, being very strategic, being calm and cool under pressure, and being able to do something very directly and quickly and with effectiveness. So there's a strong, strong Mars condition here with Mercury there. So we said when it comes to a cyber attack, an information attack, we're talking about Mars, a strong Mars, a warrior Mars, right conjunct with Mercury coming through Capricorn. This can, on one hand, on our personal lives, align our actions and words very well, and we can be very effective with how we're communicating. We can be very, we can have a resolution kind of mindset of getting things done and being a doer mentality and having a lot of energy to get things done and a lot of energy to manage our life and our material life specifically, and to be really efficient and effective, and like I said, to do what we need to do to make our lives work out really well, whatever that's pertaining to our lives. So this is a very strong day in general. It's January 27th, 2024. Will a cyber attack happen this day? I don't think so, because one of the first rules, so to say, of a major worldwide event happening is that they pretty much need to happen around the equinox time period. So between the beginning of March and then towards the end of March, the March time period is astrologically the most powerful time during the equinox season. The other time is during September, the other equinox. These times are when the day and night are about equal, but it's not just on that day the biggest events happen, on the 20th of March or the 20th of September. It's this period of time when things come into greater alignment for new projects to be pushed forward, when the zodiac begins again, when the sun comes back to Aries. There's so much thrust into the world. So if you're planning any kind of new project, it's always this time of year where you want to set those start dates to happen right around that equinox time. And so when we're talking about worldwide events, if you're, say, planning an event to happen worldwide, say you open a new company, you want it to be, if you're releasing it to anyone, but a worldwide event, it needs to be around these dates. So one of the first, like I said, rules is that they're going to happen around the equinox points of time. So January 27th, will the cyber attack happen that day? I don't think so, only because it's not close enough to when the full thrust of power will happen for an event like that to happen. It doesn't have the same kind of thrust for it to affect the world at large. But it's still a very strong day, and I would say that there's going to be some kind of omen or some kind of warning or a mustering of forces, so to say, around this time and even on this day. And partially because we have, like I said, Mars so strong next to the communication systems, Mercury. And the first thing that's happening is that Mars and Mercury conjunction is squaring Rahu and Ketu. So unexpected events can come out of nowhere. A square is a difficult but also an unseen, unexpected kind of event happening that produces difficulties. That conjunction can bring about an unexpected event that doesn't jive with what we want to really be happening, an unexpected challenge. And keep in mind that Mars is ruling Rahu because Rahu is in Aries, which gives a larger context. So Mars, the warrior, is ruling Rahu, this unexpected energy. And so with that square aspect can produce things that are wild cards. It's a wild card energy, and with such a strong Mars, that wild card could be very conflictually orientating. And then Mercury also giving that aspect, having something to do with information technology, Rahu technology, Mercury information. So this day can have that wild card aspect to it, but a very strong wild card. So we'll see what happens. But personally, it can be a powerful day, like I said, for getting things done, being very forward and energetic. On a worldwide level, we'll see what happens. I think it could be a day for something new, a new kind of breakthrough happening, but a full-blown cyber event, less likely because it's not close enough to the equinox time. We also have the sun squaring Jupiter. So that's another difficult aspect and another rigid and stress-inducing kind of energy with the sun, with authority, with governments, with power systems, and with Jupiter with wealth and with beliefs. So this can be a day too where beliefs get disappointed. What we are planning on doing as individuals gets put into a kind of a bind with what our financial situation or what we believed and wanted to happen. Can also experience a kind of a twist, or kind of a difficulty, like a kind of when you're kind of running through the mud and it's hard to get out of a situation, and having to do with what you want, with what your path in life is, and with what you believe your path in life to be. So, and this could also mean with governments, with the sun, with the clergy, or with teachers or educators, intellectuals. So that difficult aspect will play into it. This happens a couple times a year, so it's not an extremely new thing. It's not a very unique thing, but still it'll play into the overall context of this day in general. And Mars and Mercury, the conjunction, is also trining Uranus. So again, we have a very innovative day. That trine is a friendly aspect, so something flowing really well. Mars and Mercury having this efficiency and power of words and also action, having a very innovative effect that can create a breakthrough, and in a smooth and easygoing way. So that could, for personal life, could be a very positive day for you in terms of all of a sudden a new idea or a new something that you didn't think of before coming into view that's going to make your life much more effective and efficient, and creating resolving a problem that you could be having. And so again, is that going to cause a cyber attack? I tend to not think so, because it is such a nice smooth, it's a nice smooth trine angle here. But it could also give a breakthrough in technology in general. It could bring about something strong happening that is brand new. And last year we saw so much of the AI technology becoming so much more prominent. This could be a new innovation that comes about having to do with AI, or having to do with making our lives more efficient and flowing, having to do with technology in general. So we'll see what this day brings, and make sure and mark this date in your calendar and see how this plays itself out. This is going to be quite an interesting day in general. So another thing to keep in mind here for this date is that Pluto and the Sun both entered Aquarius on the same exact day, which was January 20th. Let me just go back here a couple days. And that is a rare event. And it's amazing how astrology can bring out these very rare situations. And so, as you can see, this is January 20th from Washington, the United States, Pluto in 29 degrees, the Sun in 20 minutes. So the Sun has just entered into Aquarius, spends 30 days there, and Pluto, excuse me, go to the hourly. Pluto enters the same day, just a couple hours later. They're both entering Aquarius. That is a unique situation. And that's what another of the major reasons why I think this day can have a major impact, is because when the Sun, the first planet, and Pluto, the last planet, are both entering the same sign on the exact same day, it's going to bring a thrust and a shift in Aquarian energy. And what that is, it's really contextualizing. The first planet and the last planet are contextualizing all of the other planets in Aquarian things. And that is really humanity at large, how resources, how humanity's resources are being used on a collective level. Aquarius has a technology aspect to it, or a technology attribute to it, because technologies are meant for humanity to be used on a wide-ranging level, and using connectivity between people, using technologies, or using tools that help people bring other people together. Why that date January 27th is so important, it's also because it's the same week that happens, that major change, that major shift of Pluto entering into Aquarius. Pluto went into Aquarius once in March of 2023. It then went retrograde and left, and now it's re-entering Aquarius. It's going to exit again later this year and then re-enter and then stay in Aquarius for 20 years. So I did a video about that. If you want to look at that video on my channel about Aquarius's move, or Pluto's move into Aquarius. But because this January 27th date, this important conjunction of that, such a strong Mars with Mercury, happening the same week between those two major movements of Pluto into Aquarius and the Sun entering Aquarius as well, that can bring a very strong worldwide context to any events that happen. It could have large ramifications for the worldwide community. And Aquarius is a communitarian, and large systems, the everyday people all being involved together. So that is one of the last important factors that goes into why this is such an important day as well. Because in that same week, in that same time frame, we have those two planets moving into Aquarius. So that entire week from January 20th to January 27th, we could be experiencing big shifts in consciousness, internal shifts, Pluto being the death and rebirth of our deep internal selves, the death of our ego and the rebirth of a new ego. For humanity, it could be a reawakening to what humanity's major problems are, what needs to die in terms of what humanity needs to do on a collective level, and what needs to be reborn. For technocrats, that means certain ways that the technologies work need to die, and new technologies need to be coming from the ashes from what has been destroyed. So if you're somebody who controls big parts of the internet, or if you're running the servers and you want to change things for your own way, working with Pluto's energy in Aquarius would be important, because you want to destroy something to be reborn, have another thing be reborn, or another new way of doing technology systems. So taking advantage of that energy would be a key for a cyber attack type of event, an attack, a death, for a rebirth of something new. So Pluto in Aquarius entering in January 27th. The next section is going to be the section that has the most intensity, I would say, and this is reaching outside of the time frame I'm doing this forecast for. So we're going to be talking most specifically about other possible dates for cyber attack contexts here. And this first date is going to be, we're going to start here. This is going to be during the eclipse season in March. So after the equinox on March 20th, March 21st, we have March 26th here. And this is a full moon day as well. Just a few hours earlier, the moon was here at around 6 degrees, exactly opposite the sun, making it a full moon. A few hours later, we have the moon moving, but this is a full moon day. And this is the first eclipse that happens. This is the lunar eclipse that happens on this day. So that lunar eclipse it happens, and then I'm going to follow and move just a couple weeks, and we're going to push towards the solar eclipse, the new moon that happens just 2 weeks after. So let's pay attention to what's happening in the sky during that 2-week period. We have the sun moving close to Rahu for the eclipse points. We have Mars moving closer to a planet that he does not get along with, Saturn. Venus moving into Neptune, which creates a kind of an illusions and longings for relationships to be improved. We've got Mercury here. We're going to pay attention close to Mercury here in a second. And then Jupiter, Uranus, that's another big thing that's going to be happening. So pay attention to how these planets are kind of moving day by day. So here on the 3rd of March, we have that conjunction, Neptune, Venus. Sun, Rahu are about to be conjunct. Mercury has just gone retrograde again. What day was that? That was on the, so April 1st, April 2nd, Mercury starts going backwards. And as the moon comes in, it gets close, so the moon right here coming into Aries, and once it conjuncts the sun, April 8th, there is a solar eclipse close to Rahu. So that's an eclipse date. Mercury retrograde, information technologies retrograde right next to the eclipse, and we have a tightening conjunction between Mars and Saturn. That's going to bode somewhat ominous for wanting things to be happening but then being limited by them. So it's a strong limitation energy. So wanting things to go forward and move and to solve problems, but Saturn just putting a halt to it and saying, nope, you're not doing that today. And then Jupiter, Uranus coming into close connection here. Let's go forward just a few more days. So that eclipse event is going to, and then Mercury retrograde, information technology is getting disrupted, getting combusted, being unexpected events because Rahu's right there, unexpected things, and things not working out in the way that you had been planning them, and wanting life to work in the way that you're managing it, but unexpected changes happening to them. So that eclipse energy just after the equinox is going to be very strong because we have so many planetary bodies starting to come conjunct. And then we have where things get really intense. And that's this Mercury retrograde. It's still going backwards. And Venus is closing in on Rahu. Mercury's closing in as well. Mars is already past Saturn. But notice here at the bottom, we have Jupiter, Uranus coming right conjunct. And that's happening right when Mercury and Venus, the two planets of business, making deals, negotiations, are right next to Rahu. And that can cause unexpected disruptions in business in general, unwanted events or wild cards, and mysterious wild cards at that, getting thrown into how we're managing our lives and also with relationships as well. And Mercury is still retrograde, but then Mercury goes stationary right on top of Rahu as Jupiter and Uranus are conjunct. So what this is essentially saying is that information technology is retrograde, Mercury, over unexpected events, Rahu. Jupiter, wealth, knowledge, higher knowledge, spirituality. Next to Uranus, big revolutionary events, things that are totally brand new. Jupiter also deals with society-wide, expansive effects. So with a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus in material well-being, that is saying that expansive worldwide effects, new expansive innovative effects happening because of Uranus. They're creating a new kind of genius idea or something totally that rebels against something else in order for a new identity to kind of emerge. That very volatile Uranus energy next to an expanding Jupiter, an expansive effect that happens on society-wide. Jupiter is an expansive energy, and then with Mercury retrograding right over Rahu, more unexpected events. So right around 420 to 422, 2024, we've got a lot of these intense planetary movements happening. So I would say that during this time would be the most from that eclipse in late March until, so the month period of time from March to April will be a time of a lot of change, a lot of unexpected, and things that happen on a large level, on an expanded level to be happening. I would say this would be the time frame of something happening that is maybe a cyber kind of event. Or a cyber attack kind of event. But Mars isn't so much in play, but as I said, Mars is right on top of, Saturn treats Mars as an enemy. And Mars and Saturn are basically, they fight one another because Mars wants to get things done, Saturn holds it back. And so that could cause a big push and pull that does not bring about productive results. And so that could cause that stagnation. Oh, the internet stopped one day. Oh, there's a new hack that all of a sudden these systems are all offline. All these banks are all have a brand new threat to them. And Jupiter is ruling over that conjunction. And as I said, Jupiter being right next to the volatile Uranus is creating, there's a lot of mystery involved with brand new things happening, but then at the same time, that stuck energy of Mars, Saturn happening at the same time. So this is a time period for watching out if there's going to be some kind of disruption in how information technologies are administered on a worldwide scale. I would say this would be the most probable time for the astrological energies to align to create a disrupting kind of event that affects people on a mass scale. What can we do about it? The thing is that there's not much to do about it. And that's not to say that it's bad news, but if it's going to happen, the best thing to do would be to have enough, I would say, food resources available for, a week or 2 weeks. I don't want to put fear in people's minds. It's just that these kinds of things, because we don't control the internet as regular citizens, so we're entirely dependent upon a system that we didn't create and we don't control. So if the people who do create and control it if something happens to their system, or if they deliberately do it to their own system, they're in control. And what can we do about it? We can only react and respond in ways that are going to ensure our own survivability. So being smart about having enough material resources around us to survive through these days, to not be entirely dependent upon the internet for your life completely, have other healthy activities to do, and just kind of let it ride, and we'll see what happens, because it can be a very confusing time period. Will it happen 100%? Well, the people in the World Economic Forum saying it's going to happen before January 2025. And we'll see what happens. It can be tough. I'm more interested in seeing, let's play around with the planets in our transit charts and see what we can come up with, see what are the most likely time periods of when something like this could happen. And just being mentally prepared in that sense can be very beneficial for a lot of different reasons. And just having that mental preparation just in case something were to go down. So that is the eclipse season into April can be a very volatile time. And on a personal level, it's best to keep things closed in. Don't make major plans during this time period. Wild cards can get thrown your way. Unexpected events will happen. It's best to not be doing extraneous events during these time periods, because you don't want the effects to be that much more explosive and to make that much more disruptions in your life. So keep things closed in, be very careful and watchful, because there's so much. And by the way, happening in Aries, these are very that's a very pioneering and fast moving place for these conjunctions to be happening and new cycles beginning. And so, yeah, pay attention to those things. Let's see what happens. It's always fun to take a look at the charts, and we'll see what happens. The next big days for that could create a context for a kind of a cyber event. I have here May 19th of 2024, so a little bit later. As I said, it might not be one of those singular days where something happens, but the energies are flowing in a certain way where there could be residual effects / new effects that kind of tag on to the previous larger context effects that we just discussed. And this day is when Mars is conjunct Rahu, and you can't see them because they're conjunct in Aries. So Mars in his own sign, conjunct Rahu, that can be another very powerful day for unexpected conflictual situations to come about and to be thrust into the open, and having a very strong effects because it's in Aries. And so we have Jupiter has left the Uranus conjunction, and we have some other planets falling over Uranus, but this is another day to watch as a potential residual effect day or something new kind of getting thrown into our context for in terms of conflictual situations happening. But as you can see, there aren't many other aspects happening this day, so having less of a possibility for things to be widespread. The next day I have here is August 14th, 2024. We have here Mars and Jupiter conjunction. That usually creates a very optimistic kind of energy. It creates it's a very wealth-producing energy. Mars having a lot of energy with Jupiter, the planet of wealth. So it's a day to get things, so it can have very strong effects economically. It's squaring Saturn. So that can create a pause or a strong limitation or a reality check in a sense of terms of what our ideals are, how finances are doing, an unexpected reality check coming from a Saturn aspect to that Mars and Jupiter conjunction. So that's another day that I see is having that can be another powerful day. Usually things don't go down that much in August, mainly because that's the vacation time for most of the big players in the world. So they usually let August go for the most part. We do have on that same day, we have a Mercury and Neptune Rashi aspect. And Rashi aspects are a specific technique to Gemini astrology, but that day information technology with Neptune in that aspect affecting each other, illusions about communications, longing for things to be working out better than they are, and as I said, illusions about technology. As you can see, Sun is trining Rahu, so that's a more fluid aspect there. But this is, again, I just brought out a couple dates that I wanted to kind of take a peek at. This is could be another potential potential for some kind of conflictual event. That's what I'm kind of looking for. So I did that mainly because of the Mars conjunction with Jupiter there. And then the final dates I have here is another powerful day, and this is November 1st, 2024. And this is powerful first because it's a new moon. New moons are times when new beginnings happen. That new moon is trining Saturn, so a new long-term projects getting created, being realistic about new projects, and since it's a trine, it's a fluid aspect, so something that comes about with greater ease. So that new moon being the intention being set for something long-term to be being created. We have Mars debilitated in Cancer. Mars was just in Leo. It then goes retrograde into Cancer. So this is another big factor of what's going on in the sky, is that Mars gets debilitated. That conflict planet is spending a lot of time in its debilitated sign Cancer. And just to go back a little bit, basically Mars is going to be floating around Cancer for quite some time, and that doesn't bode well for the ability to defend oneself, for people to be more passive. It's not the time for an attack to take place or a forward march kind of situation to put down to threaten another person. It's a time when things can become harder to put up a defense. So if an attack were to happen and the residual effects to take place, it would be good for those residual effects to really start hitting once Mars goes into Cancer, because people have a far more passive tendency, say worldwide, or the ability to resolve problems is far less likely. So Mars goes into Cancer. I'm sorry, I got to go back for a second. Down here, Mars goes into Cancer in the beginning of September 2024. It spends all that time in Cancer until November, and okay, we're out of, now Mars is in its friend sign, Leo. The Sun is his friend, does much better in Leo. Oh, but now Mars goes retrograde in December. Mars goes back to its debilitation, and it's going to be there until April. So we're going to be dealing with a ton of Mars inability to defend itself, passivity, low fight power, low energy levels for a long time in the year coming ahead. And that's along with a lot of other planetary effects. This is going to, I think, be it's going to be a time that's going to be very intense and difficult, and I think problems are going to start mounting on a very serious level because of Mars being in Cancer in the upcoming months ahead. And it doesn't leave Cancer until April, I believe. Then it goes direct finally, and I said in April it finally gets out of Cancer. So Mars being debilitated, I would say that if you were planning a cyber event, or if you're just shooting from the cuff, whatever day was fine for you. But for the astrological context, planning a cyber event, you would want people not to be able to defend themselves. And the biggest effects, or your biggest, newest innovations that you want to impose and that you want to push into the world to solve your problems, but you're not sure if people are going to react to them well, I would do it when Mars is in Cancer. So the effects that happen where people can't defend themselves as much, I would do it when Mars has the least amount of willpower within itself. And so that's how I would do it if I were planning a cyber attack, and I wanted people to, as I said, not be able to fight back against my will. Having low will force is basically what that is. And it's that one day that I mentioned, and it's November 1st, when it's a particularly powerful day. Like I said, because of that new moon, we have that Mars debilitated opposite Pluto. So something that's already been known to happen, a problem that has been known, that something that needs to be destroyed, and having the inability to destroy it, or having a low will force and able to overcome a major problem, or overcome or able to take something down in order for something to be reborn. So if you see a threat to your own survival, but you have low will force to overcome it, that's what that Pluto opposite Mars is going to do. And that could create the desire to make things work, and the desire to want something to be resolved in your life, but not having the full power to make it do so, and then can cause effects that make you feel you're unable to overcome a destructive force within yourself. And I just think that day is going to be kind of a maybe not an explosive day, absolutely not, because Mars is so weak, but a day that is going to have a very agonizing kind of sensation. And will a cyber attack happen that day? I think less likely. I think it's more of a day for people it's a day where there could be a lot of internal suffering. But as a new moon, it's a day to set an intention where you want things to get better for your own life. And then we also have Mercury, information technology, trining Neptune. So longing for your life to be better, longing for things to improve, having better communication, and but even illusions about the way that you're communicating, but being more conscious of the illusions. That's what Mercury trining Neptune can do for that day. Rahu is not involved, so things aren't going to be popping out unexpectedly in that situation. So those are just a couple of dates. Hopefully I didn't go too long. When will the cyber attack happen? It's, we can't know for sure. I think it's interesting to look at what is the context of possibilities according to the planetary bodies, which are the bodies that give the energetic possibilities and give the energetic environment that we live in. It's the weather of the subtle energies around us. And it's always fascinating to take a dive in. So hopefully that can give you some insight into what's going to be happening. I'm going to be doing more videos about the transits coming up in the year to come, because there's going to be a lot of action and there's going to be a lot of troubling stuff. And as soon as we hit 2025, that's where the real speed bumps and the real big waves are going to be hitting humanity in a lot of different ways. And So yeah, let's take it one day at a time, and we'll see what happens in the next coming months, and take a look at the astrological forecast in the link description of this video to take a couple important dates in the next few months coming up. Mark those dates on your calendar, and we'll go from there. Okay, stay tuned for the next video.